The last type of data display to discuss is a dot plot. A dot plot, or also known as a line plot, is a number line with marks that show the frequency of data. A dot plot helps you see where data cluster. So here's an example. We have test scores of students. So the count of X marks above each score represents the number of students who received that score. So, for example, let's look over here at 45. A score of 45, there are 2 X's above that score, so that's representing that 2 students received that score of 45. Again, the count of X marks above each score represents the number of students who received that score. It looked like 3 scored 40, 4 scored 35, 5 scored 50, so we can take a look and we can see that the data is clustering kind of between 35 to 45. So let's answer some other questions. For example, how many students in total took the test? How can we use the dot plot to answer that question? What is the minimum score and the maximum score? What is the mean, the mode, and the median? And what is the lower and upper quartile? So 26 students we know took the test because there are 26 total X's on the dot plot. So that's the total amount. You just count up all the X's. The minimum score we have is 30 and the maximum is 50. That's the lowest number on your number line and the highest number on your number line. The mean is about 40.1. So the mean is a little harder to find. You have to really count up and find the sum of all your data points and then divide by that 26. So you would have to add up 30 plus 30 plus 30 plus 30 plus 30 plus 30. So 5 times of 30 plus how many times of 35? Of 36, 37, 38, 40, and keep going and then find that sum and divide by that 26 students. The mode is, we have 30. Because you can see the mode, that's the most amount of X's. The mode is very easy to see in a dot plot because you can just see what's the highest amount of X's, which number has the most X's above it. The median is 40. It's a little harder to see. You kind of have to find the middle of your X's, but again, you can line up your data points and find that middle data term. So in this case, it is 40. Oftentimes, the median will be right in the middle, that number, but not always. It could be off depending on how many X's are above that middle number and then to the right and to the left of it. And then the same idea with the lower and upper quartile. They're a little harder to see, but you would have your lower quartiles, the median of your lower data, which in this case is 35, and the upper quartile is the median of your upper data, which in this case is 48. So I think the easiest of all these things to see is the mode when you're looking at a dot plot, and then maybe how many students took the test, that total, and then the minimum and the maximum because you can see it. I think it's a little harder to see the mean, the median, and the lower and upper quartiles when looking at a dot plot. So now how do we actually construct a dot plot? So there's 4 steps. You would have to first organize the data, and we can use a list or a frequency table to do that. Since, again, the X's in your dot plot are marking the frequency of a data number. Then 2, you would draw a number line with an appropriate that scale coming from your frequency table or your list. 3 is count the frequency of the first number and mark the same amount of X's above that number on the line. And then 4, repeat step 3 until you complete the data set. So let's look at an example. Here we have Miley is training for a bike-a-thon. The table shows the number of miles she biked each day. She has 1 day left in her training. How many miles is she most likely to bike on that last day? So to answer that question, we're going to make a dot plot. So the first step is to organize the data, and we can do that by completing a frequency table. So we've kind of organized by miles, so we have 1 to 9 because that's your minimum and your maximum in your table. So when we look at frequency, I'm just looking how many times do I see that number in the table. So for example, mile 1, I only see 1 once, so I would mark a 1 for seeing it once. For 2, I see 2, 1, 2, 3, 4 times, so I would mark 4 tick marks as the frequency for 2, and I would do and repeat this process for 3, 4, 5, 6, and 9. and that would complete my frequency table. Now I can use this frequency table to create a number line. So I would want to draw a number line. So my appropriate scale, since my miles range from 1 to 9, I'm going to go 1 to 10 on the number line. So you can go anywhere as long as you have those numbers you need marked. You can do a little bit more or a little bit less, but in this case, we're only doing one number more for miles. Then we want to count the frequency of the first number and mark the same amount of x's above that number on the line. So for example, with mile 1, we had that number occurring once. So I'm going to put an 1x over 1. But then for 2, the frequency was 4. So I'm actually going to draw 4 x's above 2 because that was the frequency in my frequency table. So I'm repeating this process for mile 3, 4, 5, 6, and 9 until it looks like this. So here is my completed dot plot. Now I can use this to help me answer the question, how many miles is Miley most likely to bike on her last day? So Miley is most likely to bike on her last day what she biked the most before, almost thinking of the mode of your data, which in this case we can see is going to be 5. So Miley is most likely to bike on her last day 5 miles. We can use a dot plot to then answer questions and make predictions about the data we had. And again, seeing the cluster or seeing where the most common data is.